Hello, and welcome to this season of Alter Eagle. We are starting season 1 with the topic of addiction in Butler County. Conversations on the physical side of addiction, trauma, the neuroscience, mental health, and stigma surrounding addiction. Experts, resources, and stories from people who have fought addiction head on. I am your host, Laura Krigo. Let's keep the conversation going. Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. For a long time, I suffered with depression and anxiety. I had tried therapy before, but struggled finding a therapist I connected with until I found BetterHelp. That's why I am so excited to share BetterHelp's mission to make therapy more affordable and more accessible, because finding a therapist can be hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online. Remote therapy sessions, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. Click the link in description and receive 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. And by clicking that link, you support this channel. Plus, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. I was struggling for a long time, and BetterHelp was where I found my therapist, Whitney, who I still see weekly for almost 2 years now. So, if you're struggling like I was, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in description or go to betterhelp.com/altereagle. That's betterhelp.com/altereagle. There's no better time than now to start your mental health journey. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel. Today I am sitting down with Commissioner Kevin Boozel. Kevin completed his Master of Science degree at Geneva College for Organizational Leadership and has more than a decade of service as a volunteer firefighter and EMT. Kevin continues to find satisfaction, challenges in his current role by ensuring the success of current projects and by taking on new projects that are community-driven. His strong desire to provide the best services to the residents while drawing on his unique leadership experience is the driving force that keeps him interest piqued and dedication strong. Welcome, Commissioner Boozel.
Thank you. Great to be here.
We also have Richard A. Goldinger. Mr. Goldinger was 2007. He was elected District Attorney of Butler County and has remained in that position. He is also a past president of the Pennsylvania District Attorneys Association. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good to be here.
Also joining me today is Butler County Drug and Alcohol Director Donna Jenereski. So Donna currently serves on the board of Southwest Behavioral Health Management, Incorporated, to provide oversight and direction of the Butler County Health Choices program. She also serves on the Butler County Children and Youth Advisory Board, and she is currently the chair of the Butler County Criminal Justice Advisory Board. Thank you for joining me today, Donna. The topic that we really want to get into, obviously, is the LETI, focusing on that budgeting and planning at a state and county level, as well as all of you sort of sharing your personal why. So who would like to go first? Who wants to tell us? I know everyone's story. We got into it just a little bit. Let's start with District Attorney.
You're going to start with me.
We're going to start with Rich.
I won't set a high standard, so.
Thank you.
I doubt it.
Well, I was born and raised in Butler and graduated from Butler High School in the late 80s. And I recall back in those days that, what we had in Butler was, you knew who the certain people were who were using marijuana. Cocaine wasn't even in existence in Butler County back at that time. And I went to college at Pitt, and that's the first time I ever heard of anybody ever using cocaine. I mean, I didn't even see it, but I remember that guy used cocaine, and he was like shaking and stuff. I'm like, I don't want to get near that, And so then I come back after law school practicing law, and late 90s, early 2000s is when heroin suddenly hit. And it's like, man, where did this come from? And we're talking less than 15 years from when I graduated high school. So, I represented a lot of those people, which exposed me to what that addiction was, how they acted, I had a woman one time in my office literally threw up while she was consulting with me about criminal charges, and she was a heroin addict. And so that exposure really opened my eyes to, wow, this is different than anything that I had seen. Certainly different than alcohol, and my little brief exposure to cocaine. It wasn't anything like that either. So when the longtime DA became judge, and I had seen this, for over 10 years now, I thought that, well, maybe I can make a difference if I run for district attorney and try and get control of this drug problem that was in Butler County at this point. And so I did, and I successfully was elected. And, once I started, I had the idea of, well, we have to prosecute these people in order to punish them and try and make them, well, get them clean by arresting and incarcerating. And didn't take long, excuse me, to realize, and Donna, I think, was involved at that point already as well, that wasn't going to work. We're putting these people in jail. They're addicts, and we're not getting them sufficient treatment while they're in there. And so we released them from jail because we can't keep people in jail indefinitely, because they have an addiction, and realized that we need to go a different path. We need to try and rehabilitate, not just incarcerate. So, I think things sort of took a turn at that time in my mind. I mean, obviously still drug dealers, like, we're coming after you. Mm-hmm. But when you have an addiction and you can't get it under control, we have, come up with many, many ways within the criminal justice system to help these people and to deal with that problem rather than just arrest and incarcerate our way into a deeper problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's why I'm so glad we're sitting down. Donna, she wants Kevin to go next. Kevin, you're up.
Sure. Like Rich, I graduated high school in late 80s, and then I went on to college, got married, and came back home. But in that time of becoming a teacher, working with youth, mentored a few kids in there that were coming from difficult backgrounds, family backgrounds, and so on. And when we moved back here to Butler, one of my first jobs was working with youth with special needs. I worked in an autism classroom. I've worked with emotional support classrooms. But as I worked with this youth, I ended up working with their families as well and trying to tie back, like, what's going on that's causing this behavior, right? There's cause and effect. And so that's what I went looking for. And I ended up working with adults, mainly with mental health, serious mental health issues. I worked at Irene Stacy's at the time and worked there for a good many years, worked with many of the county partners, CYS, drug and alcohol, probation. A lot of my folks were on probation. But the gamut of the folks that I worked with, many had drug and alcohol issues as well as mental health. So I had, dual diagnosed clientele. And then I started working with folks that were coming back from the institutions, Torrance State Hospital, and finding housing and working with intensive case management, crisis, mobile meds, all these programs that were evolving in the, I'd say, mid-late 90s. And, the thought process there was that if we don't have to pay this high rate for them to be in an incarcerated or an institution, get them in the community, get them stabilized, let them live their lives as close to their family and the best quality of life that they can have. And I truly believed that, but then I found so many obstacles, I would say, for a lot of this clientele, one of them being jail. When they would go to jail, they lose all their insurances, and that caused a lot of problems for us, a lot. So when you lose insurance, as soon as you cross that threshold, yes, they're taken care of in the jail, but it may take me 6 more weeks when they come out of jail to help them find their benefits again. And 6 weeks without psychotropic medications can be very detrimental. And oftentimes they would end up doing whatever they did before and going back into jail. And so I was very frustrated with that entire system and struggling with, at the time, I think I went on to be a Catholic Charities Director. I can't even remember all the positions, but I was just trying to find a way to make it work better. Similar to what Rich was saying, you can only see this for so long before you realize that the incarceration avenue only works for a certain period of time, maybe in a crisis situation, but that long-term effect, not only on that individual, but the family and the community and the employment and the housing and the children in that house and the spouse in that house, all of it is affected. And every one of the services that we provide at the county now are now heavily involved. And so it's not just the cost of putting somebody in jail. It's the cost of all the ramifications, the ripple effects, and all the things that happen. And what we can't, I don't even know if you can calculate correctly the amount of money being expended to be able to say we punished that person for a bad thing. And no doubt they did a bad thing, no question, and they do need a reprimand. They need something, but they also need treatment, and they need to find a way out of this. And the family needs support so that they can work with this person as well to get out. So it's been a struggle for my entire career. I also worked in housing and homeless, housing authorities, ran those for a good many years. But, one of the things that I can tell you is people say, well, did they choose to be homeless? And I said, well, they didn't roll out of bed one day and say, the heck with it, I'm just going to go live on the street. That's not how it works. The decisions that they made led up to them being homeless. For them to break through the barriers of getting back on their feet again requires an entire community, and that person has to be ready. You can't force someone to do it. You can't force someone into treatment. You can't force them to get better. You can't force the family to stick with them. What we know is that we got to come around them and make sure that every effort, every opportunity is made available. And a lot of folks, and I mean this, a lot of folks have worked their way through that system to the positive side, to the other side. And that's what keeps me going every day. I mean, and I'm sure with many of the other people that do this service, it's been a lifelong event for me. I ended up becoming a firefighter and an EMT. I became an EMT because I thought as a firefighter, I see a lot of motor vehicle accidents. My very first call, I'll never forget, I was trained as an EMT. The number one thing that always stuck with me was when you walk into a home as an EMT, you don't know what you're walking into. You really have no idea. And we were trained to take a good 360 before you go blundering into somebody's house because you don't know what you're walking into. The very first call, and I'm talking very northern, rural Butler County, and the very first call I walked into, it was a murder over marijuana. And a gentleman had been murdered by a brother-in-law, I believe. But, those types of things, you just can't even imagine happens, but they do. And so, that person was on the lam for 3 days or 4 days. I had a search for him, and they found him and everything. But, that's a lot. And then to be a person that's actually served in an EMS unit and provided naloxone and watched people go through this. I've had people overdose in my program. I've had people die from an overdose in programs that I've run. That's a hard thing to live through and say, what if I could have done something different? But at the end of the day, everybody gets to make that choice. It's not, I have caseworkers that would take it home and feel bad about the thing that's happened, but they can't own somebody else's business. They can only help them and be prepared to help them when they're ready. But that's a tough line to draw for a lot of folks.
Yeah. Well, it's important for everyone to know that you were an EMT, because we did talk quite a bit about that in a situation that you had with someone who was overdosing and how you had to navigate with family members.
Yeah, in that situation, there was a sister that the sister and mother called for a young man, and he had been using for a long, long time, and he'd overdosed. They'd found him at home, and they called 911, which you'd normally do, but once I was there and working with this person, they didn't want him treated. And that to find out that they said, please, he's already gone. He's been gone for years. And that kind of mentality is that basically, as I talked to them, it ate his soul, is the way they put it to me. And I can see it because people have lost their value system, their drive, their love. Look, these drugs take all of that away from you. All of it. And so the only thing that matters is that drug. And so that's what this family's feeling. And they feel just disemboweled, like there's nothing left for me. And so it's a hard thing to watch happen. And thank goodness I don't do that every day. And I do get to give out a shout out to the police and fire and EMS that do it every day. I do it as a volunteer, but I'm on sabbatical now because too busy with my job. But quite honestly, it's one of the hardest things that you have to watch.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
I was born and raised in Butler, moved away, went to college, and I think that you and I have talked about this a little bit. Early in my 20s, that's when it became personal. That's when I experienced my own trauma, so to speak, that related around substance use disorder. And at the time, I knew nothing. I understood nothing. Life, my world at that point just flipped upside down. And so throughout that process, what I struggled with was why, why, was I the reason for this? Like, how could somebody choose that over someone they loved, a life, happiness, whatever. And so at that point, obviously I took time to heal, but, and it was probably selfish to begin with, but like I needed to understand what addiction was about. Probably because I needed to know that it wasn't me. But in that process, that's how, and it was years of just doing whatever I could do to learn about addiction and try to understand addiction. And that's kind of what just pulled me in the direction that I went. I've done many things, but all within the human services field. I've worked with adolescents, delinquent adolescents, children and youth for different counties, and actually Butler County before I transferred to drug and alcohol. So there was always that substance use component in the work that I did. And then I reached a point where I was ready. Like this, I knew that this was what I was supposed to do with my life.
Thank you for sharing that. Honestly, something you hear from a lot of people, and I have heard this from a lot of people that I've sat down with. If you're all familiar with Stop the Judgment, I sat down with Sherry Jo and Tom, her husband, and they shared their story. And it was almost instantaneously that she knew that they had to start a foundation after their daughter overdosed on fentanyl and died in their home. And they weren't there when this happened. So the car ride back from Ohio, a 4-hour car ride, they don't remember the car ride. Father doesn't even remember driving. They just remember feeling everything that they were feeling in that moment and knowing that she was gone. Thank you for sharing that, because a lot of times it is like substance abuse where it's going to go one way or the other, right? It's almost a fork in the road. They're either going to continue down this path of recovery or it's going to end. And it's the same with healing. It's the same with the other side, the family members, the loved ones, the parents, the husbands, the wives, how they're going to deal with that grief and how they're going to move forward. It can be very similar to that fork in the road, right? So as we're talking about our personal connections here and that you all are really dedicating your lives to making a difference in Butler County, thank you all for doing that. It's not an easy thing. And I know since moving back myself, learning that there is a lot of good happening just feels good. It feels good to be here again and back home and know that we are making a difference. So I want to talk, I really like Donna and Commissioner Boozel to get into focusing on LETI. Explain that a little bit more to me. And well, all three of you, right? All three. You're like, actually, you're like,
You're not
I'll
sitting
fill in
this
the
out.
blanks.
You're not
You're
sitting
like-
it out.
you're like, let's see what they have to say. Go at it.
Go, Rich.
Yeah.
Okay. LETI is actually a program through the Office of Attorney General, excuse me, that they are coordinating or working with the district attorney's offices of the various counties who take part. So I think last I heard there were 30 in Pennsylvania. I went over to Armstrong County a couple weeks ago. They just implemented the program. Went over to support the DA over there. So, excuse me. But what LETI is it stands for Law Enforcement Treatment Initiative. And it's simply another avenue for individuals who have substance abuse disorder to be introduced to treatment. And there are really 3 phases to it. The first phase would be simply an encounter with a police officer or a law enforcement officer, either on a street or, say a parent maybe takes them to the police department, their child or someone that is suffering, and the police call if it's during working hours, they call Donna's office, or if it's after hours, there's a 1-800 number to refer this individual to treatment. if the officer would encounter this person and maybe they're committing a criminal offense, the officer, if the person's willing to go to treatment through the LETI referral, the officer can hold off on filing charges, almost like having criminal charges hanging over their head. Another enticement to encourage this individual to follow through with the treatment. And if they do so, then the officer never follows through with filing the charges. So that's really the first phase. Would be before any criminal charges are even filed. It would be an encounter between the police or law enforcement. It doesn't have to be law enforcement. It could be anybody. They could come up to me. They could come up to Commissioner Boozel, an EMT, ambulance driver, whoever, teacher, anybody, and make this referral through the LETI program. The second phase would be if charges have been filed. So let's say the officer offers it, the individual doesn't want it, so now they have criminal charges filed, and they are scheduled for a preliminary hearing. Well, at that point, it's still an option for them to do. My office would then have to agree to it, but we could make the referral, and if the individual is willing to go to the treatment and complete the treatment successfully, they could earn a way out of the charges. I think that's not really set in stone yet, because I think it would depend on the charges. If you have, someone that's committed multiple retail thefts, we might say, okay, you're doing this because you have a substance abuse disorder. Go to this program, complete the treatment. We'll drop this down to a summary offense or something like that, so you don't have a felony on your record. So that would be the second phase, which would be at the magisterial district court level. And again, that referral can be made by the police. My office would have to agree again, but maybe the police officer comes to the ADA and says, I'd like to refer this person to LETI. Would you agree to it? I want to give them the chance. Maybe the magisterial district judge would say something. I mean, they know their constituents. They have their own, I like to call them little fiefdoms. They know their people. They know their people that have problems. So if they say, we've seen this person enough, we've heard about, we've had complaints, landlord-tenant issues, whatever it may be. So maybe the magistrate says to the ADA, let's give LETI a shot on this and see if we can help this person. Third phase would be at the trial level. Basically, it's, we're at the point now where, charges are at that point, but the person decides that, hey, we want to get treatment. And track 3 would be the magisterial district judge level. But truly, I do envision this as being fluid.
Yeah.
I can see this being something that somebody that is continuing to violate probation, we could refer them to treatment through the LETI program to try and, whatever the carrot would be for them at that point.
Yeah.
So this is really the track that, or the 3 tracks that the Attorney General's office has. I can't read it, Donna. Well, they're right here, but
do you not want to put your glasses on, or?
Well, I don't want to be reading. Here, let me see it.
It's fine.
That's just summarizes.
I just think that it's
tracks.
something that it's, we have an outline now,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that as time goes on and as we utilize it, we can make it fit what we need. And that's why I have always thought this is something that would never be closed off if the charges are already in the criminal justice system and you have a conviction, but you can't kick your habit. I just feel like it's something that it's a real asset that we can work with.
And to be honest with you, I think that Rich and his team and the team at the ADAs have really instituted a lot of these thought processes well before the LETI program was actually adopted. In my opinion, I seen the drug and alcohol, the courts come in, and the veterans courts and the mental health courts. And so, when you see that kind of behavior, now what that takes is a lot of services. And that's where Donna comes in and Marnie Reddick and all those folks that work in mental health, and veterans. And so you can't do these types of tools if you don't have the resources to back them up. And that's where I think we're pretty blessed here in Butler that we are resource friendly. We have a lot of resources here to help people, and they have a lot of opportunity here that they may not have other places.
And just to piggyback on that, it's the collaboration piece. And for years, and I'm thankful that maybe it's because of our courts, the specialty courts, whatever the reason is, it exists. The collaboration exists. So I know with our office, the referrals from probation, CYS, they're identifying people, and not necessarily because they violated probation. More often than not, yes, but they're identifying people and they're trying to make those connections to our office rather than the alternative, which is put them in jail, let them get out. But that collaboration is huge, and it already existed. So something like this is wonderful. We just, like anything, we can't just let it sit on the shelf. We need to continue to get the information out there, refresh memories, so that we utilize this program.
So I had a question that popped up after you were talking about when someone was incarcerated and how they would lose their insurance. Is that still the same today? And is this program something that's trying to help avoid that, or?
So it is still active today, but it's a little bit different. There was some legislation that made it so that it was suspended. So when they cross the threshold, it gets suspended. I can usually have it turned on in a couple of days, right? 2 to 3 days, I think, is what the normal turnaround time is now. But it was a huge problem then. It's still a problem now. But the other side of that is what people don't realize is even though you're not convicted, the minute you cross a threshold, even under charges, all that goes away. And that comes directly to our prison, and our prison pays the medical bill for that person. And that comes directly to our property owners here in Butler, and that is how that's funded. So, I think people need to realize that avenue of going to jail, while maybe like a knee-jerk reaction, it is certainly not the most effective.
Yes. Okay. And that was going to be my next question too, is that when they are incarcerated, they need medical care. Like, how are they being taken care of?
We see motions to get people released because, we don't want to have to foot a huge medical bill for somebody that might need surgery or honestly giving birth. I've seen that so many times where there's women pregnant in the prison and they are ready to give birth, and we're like, we don't want to pay for that birth. So
or cancer patients. That's another
yes,
person. Right?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Or if you have somebody that, like the sheriff, if they get furloughed to go up there for treatment, up to the hospital, the sheriff has to sit with them. So now the sheriff's paying overtime to, I would presume, 2 deputies. I wouldn't think they would only let 1 sit up there. And so those people are sitting up there paying them overtime for that. So it's a huge cost to the county.
Yeah, because as we get into budgeting, right? I don't know why I said it like that, budgeting. I said it weird. Did you hear that?
It was English.
Yeah.
Budgeting.
Here's the thing. Sometimes I do that, and it just sort of happens. All right. So when we talk about that, and we had spoken about this and how you sit down and this is the budget and these are the buckets and you decide where everything's going to go. I know that, you get a paycheck, right? You're like, oh, I got to pay these bills. I got to do this. And before you know it, poof, it's gone, right? And it's probably the same because of all of these additional costs that people don't understand. That's just the way that it is, right? So,
and that's a good point. And when we talk about the prison and instantly MAT popped in my head.
Sure.
The prison budgets and doing what they need to do. Here comes something from the state level down. This you must do. You must continue people on MAT if they come into your jail on MAT, and all of a sudden, now there's a cost that no one factored, but it's a cost that we need to cover and continue to cover.
That is about a $500,000 increase annually. That came. That price tag is not cheap, and it's growing. We're not initiating that treatment. We call it MAT. It's medically assisted treatment. We're not initiating that in jail, but prior to this, we didn't continue it. And so A lot of people went through some really bad withdrawals and some other things. And so there is counseling in the jail. There is medical assisted treatment, but that doesn't come for free. That's, like I said, about $500,000. And we were successful in getting a $200,000 grant over 2 years. We've used some of the commissary fund to help fund that extra cost. But, you know, when people look at our jail and they think, okay, how much is it, you know, since we started, it was about $12 million a year, I think, to run our jail annually. I think we're a little over $14 million now. And so that we can see where these costs are going up, and it's primarily our cost of healthcare. So the other thing is that we don't talk about, and drugs have a lot of different rippling effect, but one of them is our general health. If they're using a lot of drugs, their general health isn't great either. So, you know, when we get them at that point where they're using a lot of drugs and they go to jail, they're not in the best of health. They didn't just come from the gym. So we're talking about lots of medical issues in our jail. So we have to have a very good medical care system in our jail. Otherwise, we're, as Rich was saying earlier, you got to run them to the hospital all the time. That costs money. We got 2 people sitting on them. We got transportation. We got a safety risk, right? We don't want to do that. So we provide as much medical care in our jail without transport as possible, as long as it's within the safety limits, you know, but we have medical doctors that make those calls.
So whenever it does come time for all of these, like on a state level, local level, right? Do you want to talk at all about like where dollars are being used? I put something here, not SCA.
Oh, so Donna is the SCA.
Yes.
She's the single county authority.
Okay.
And it's not the same as the SCA funds that they're typically used to. So what we're talking about
Yep.
from your notes, and I remember having this conversation, these settlement dollars that we talked about that come through the trust that the Attorney General's office had negotiated from pharmaceutical companies and delivery companies. And these dollars are not taxpayer dollars, so they come with a little bit different rules, right? And so, you know, while they can marry up with what typical drug and alcohol programs can do, we can do prevention, we can do treatment, we can do all those things. It also can fit into buckets that maybe are what I would consider non-traditional. So, you know, and I would really like Donna to talk about some of the programs that we have already implemented, and one that we're excited about. And I'm assuming you're going to talk about the Recovery Center, but that's one of our major projects for Butler County that'll be interesting to watch. But we have also had everything from journaling for probation. So what we basically did was ask the departments, what's missing? Where's the gap? And so one of the gaps that came out of probation was a journaling, sort of a cognitive behavioral therapy journaling process to work through, because you can't just say, get over it. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, so it's sort of like the storyline to tell. So there's a whole process to do that. And because they'd asked for that, I mean, it's not a huge cost, but it's $22,000 to do that annually. So, but there's a huge expected benefit of that. And we're already seeing that. We've talked to the chief of probation. He's talked about some of the process of what's happening. We've also worked with reintegration from the jail. So, you know, it's I talked about people who've lost housing, they've lost benefits, so there's a reintegration piece, and they need a housing piece, and they need a case management piece. There's a lot of pieces in there that move around that may or may not have been traditionally covered by typical drug and alcohol funds. So I'll let Donna talk about the Recovery Center. I think that's one of the, like I said, one of the most exciting.
Right. So one of the things that the recovery community identified as a priority was the development of a recovery center here in Butler. And that's something that I agreed with, something that I have wanted to, it's been a vision of mine for many, many years. It was a matter of, how are we going to do this? How are we going to afford it? How are we going to sustain it? So with the opioid settlement dollars, the dream is actually coming true. We were able to locate and secure a building for the recovery center. Opioid settlement dollars, as well as health choices reinvestment dollars. A small plan was put into place to pay for the building. The opioid settlement dollars, however, will help to cover renovations, operating costs, and kind of keep it moving forward over the next couple of years, hopefully. So we're really excited. The address is 100 Center Avenue. It's currently being renovated right now. We're still being told April 25th we can open the door. So it's just a really exciting time. This is I'm a part of it, but it's really being led by people in recovery, the recovery community. We come together now once a week to talk about what we need to do, what we need to have in place for when that door opens. So
Yes, that's very exciting. Beautiful building too. I've always loved that building. What will be happening there? I know you're going to have some fun events for the people in recovery, right? So they need somewhere to go to socialize, to have that human connection.
Right. So definitely that piece. We've talked a lot about having computer space, for job searching, having things brought in, whether it be adult literacy classes, things like that. So and I say we, and I mean they're open to all of this. And I think and I agree, we're at the point now, let's open the doors. Let's open the doors, let them come in, feel and see that this is a safe place, and then listen to what the needs are at that point. Because we can lay this all out and say we're going to do A, B, and C. And when we go to try to do A, B, and C, it might not work out. That might not be what the needs are. So I think that's going to be our course. But there's an openness and a willingness to be open-minded, and let that come in and just kind of feel it out.
Well, that can be very therapeutic for someone who's in recovery, to give them a little bit of power and be heard, to come in and say, it'd be really cool if there was a cooking class, or if someone came in even with those paint by numbers, they have those things now, right? You never know what someone's going to come up with. You have a lot of talented people in this community, and I don't think that is something that's just to someone who is sober, right? You will have a lot of individuals that will come in there who have a lot of talent, and there's that potential that maybe they don't realize that they even have. Right. So that's kind of exciting too, to have given them the opportunity to say, do you have a talent? Do you have something you want to do? Let's make it happen. Right.
Right.
I love that.
That was identified also by probation, I think public defenders, and I think Rich's office as well. With the folks that are on probation, one of the things they can't do is go out and party and do things. So what's the recreational piece? There's a missing recreational piece in their safe space of recreational. And so that was identified early on, and the recovery center can fit that bill. It gives them a place that they can be, relax, enjoy, sober living style, and encourage each other. The number one thing that I think helps people is encouragement from people that have been through it. You can talk to your therapist, you can talk to your counselor, caseworker, whatever, but until they feel like there's a connection made, whatever that connection is, they're not going to take it. They have to really believe in it. And so this could be that place where they get to find that. Plus they get to do, I know Dawn had said other types of programs, but there's also housing counseling. Like what's it, a lease? Is it a legal document? Like everything from days of what we think everybody should know. They may never have had that experience. They may never have, they might have been kicked out as a juvenile. You don't know where they came from. I can guarantee you'll see, from my homeless program days, you'll see folks that have been homeless, currently homeless. You'll probably see folks that are trying to get it back on their feet, veteran and non-veteran. I think you're going to see all walks of life. And, believe me, these drugs don't pick. And they don't pick you because you're poor. They don't pick you because you're different than, you're not Caucasian. They don't pick you because of any of those reasons. They pick you because you made a choice. Most times you made a choice. And this is a response to that. And so a lot of things happen. People don't choose to be drug addicts. People don't choose to be homeless, but sometimes it comes on them very quickly.
This ties into the topic in general, right? Stigma. Like you said, I don't know how someone became homeless. No one chooses to become homeless. People don't want to be passed out on the sidewalk. And that's not how anybody wants to live their life. They made a choice, they experimented, whatever, and then we can get into all of the nooks and crannies of the brain and what happens to our bodies. And, we could be siblings, right? And both try drugs, and I could become an addict and he might never have a problem. He could try it once and that would be it, right? I could try something one time and become addicted. So it's this interesting topic of conversation, but when we're talking about stigma, there's a lot of that too when people get out and they are getting back on their feet and they're trying to get into housing and someone sees something on their record.
I know that a lot of landlords will not rent to people with criminal records, especially felonies. And I don't know, I don't know the answer if there is something with HUD housing, if they have convictions, although I think there is.
There's two major ones.
Yeah.
One is they cannot, there's only two, not a felony by itself isn't enough to exclude them. But there's two. One is if they've manufactured in public housing or in a public building. And the other one was permanent sex offender. Sexually violent predator. Those are the two that are guaranteed that HUD doesn't touch.
Okay.
Everything else is on the table. That's why but the interesting part is if they have any of those charges, you can almost bet it's going to go to an appeal. They're going to deny it, and then they have to go fight and tell you why. I've done my treatment. I've done this. Why are you excluding me? That kind of conversation has to be had.
I will say this, though, sort of to go along with, you brought up the homelessness and housing.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for someone that's a convicted felon to get a job. If you can't get a job, how are you going to get housing? And I think that it is a vicious cycle that when we see these people, a lot of those people probably have criminal records. Even if they obtain employment, maybe they can't hold it for whatever reason, or maybe they're not asked when they apply, and somebody then says, "Hey, I know you got a criminal record," and the employer finds out, and now they lose the job. So, yes, in that sense, I can say that there is a stigma. Someone with a criminal record, that they could struggle to find meaningful employment and keep it, which then directly impacts their ability to have housing.
Be in a situation where you have a record that is going to hinder that. And then what do, right? I mean, I'm sure you probably have a lot of people that come through your programs.
And it's unfortunate because they seek treatment. They begin that journey of recovery. They're ready to make or to take those steps, find employment or whatever, and then it's just setback after setback when they can't find employment. And I don't knock any employment out there, but it's not the employment of the ideal employment. That's usually the places that'll hire, and we encourage and say, you have your foot in the door, work, build your resume. And that a big part of that is true, but for a lot of these individuals, it's just, it feels like they're being knocked backwards. They're not moving forward as quickly or as smoothly as they would like to. I've written too many letters, to support someone and where they're at in their journey, to help them secure housing, or go back to school or anything like that. It's unfortunate, and that, in my opinion, that just adds to the stigma. The way these individuals feel. I mean, these are human beings, and we all should have a right to feel loved, to feel respected, to feel welcome, like that we belong, and little things like this just chip away at that.
Yeah.
It's a good opportunity to talk about the state does have a program for employers to get them bonded for people that are accepting somebody with a criminal record. So, I think it's $5,000 or something. But, the reality is the state recognizes the fact that if you're going to take a chance, we'll take a chance with you type of environment. And, I think that, all these things that we just talked about, we talk about all the time amongst us. As we said, the collaboration is really good. The Criminal Justice Advisory Board, the Prison Board, the Mental Health Board, the Drug and Alcohol Board. Like, we have so many advisory boards. I feel like I'm running into Donna everywhere, which is great.
Yeah.
But, that didn't happen when we were talking about coming into this environment in the 90s, even into 2000. None of that was really happening. I mean, you might have seen pieces of it or a person really activating things, but this whole system is, and I really want to say this because I hear this a lot. It's all about crime, right? For people, that's what they recognize. That's what's publicized. That's what's sensationalized. It's what people are afraid of, right? And so when you hear that, the first thing is, and they hear what we do and how we try to assist people in getting out of, they say, "Oh, you're just being soft on crime." I say, no, not at all. We're being smart on crime, and really by by being this delivery system and resources, they are actually saving money. There's no question about it. And the fact is that the disruption in our community is less. The disruption in our workforce is less. The disruption in our economic value is less. And I truly believe, and if you look around any county around us, Butler County is doing quite well. I can remember when I first started as commissioner, everyone said, "Oh, this is drug capital of the world." Da da da. You got to go across the bridge, brother, because you got to go see what's on the other side. And if you've not seen what's out there, this Butler is beautiful. We are really in a blessed place. I knock on wood because I don't want to lose this. Is it perfect? I haven't met a perfect place yet, but I can tell you that with the resources that Donna and the teams that we have at the courts and us as commissioners, we really have focused in on making Butler the best place that it can be. And somebody's going to have a different experience, and I get that, and they may have bad experience, but that doesn't, one bad actor doesn't tell you who all is living in this whole community.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
I'd like to just pipe in on that if anybody takes grief for big soft on crime, it's me, I think, but I'm willing to, I have been willing and I am willing to take part in these programs, drug treatment court, veterans court, behavioral health court, now the LETI program. I've worked with Donna on this stuff pretty much since I became the DA, but I remember her before that too. But, people want to say, well, you're being soft on crime. But our crime is so down right now compared to what it was even 10 years ago. And I have to think that some of these programs that we have worked together to implement have helped. They have rehabilitated people. They've taken them out of the criminal justice system. They have shown them the value of life to encourage them to get employment and live the straight and narrow. And so I think it's been a risk that was worth the reward at this point. And I just think we keep going. We lowest crime rate in Western PA. I saw some data on our overdoses. We have one of the lowest rates in the state. So yeah, you can point at some bad things around the county. Absolutely. You can do that in every single county in the state. I think we're on a good path. I think we're doing things pretty good.
So when we talk about number of rehab facilities,
Yes.
that's you, Miss Donna.
That's me.
Yeah.
When we talk about non-hospital drug and alcohol inpatient facilities, we, through the contracting process, we contract with 32 treatment programs across the region and throughout the Commonwealth. 20 of those facilities also provide non-hospital detoxification. And just so people know, 19 of those facilities are within a 2-hour drive from Butler. So yes, we do contract with facilities that are on the eastern side of not as far as Harrisburg, Philadelphia, but they're far, but not all of them. So there are a lot in this region and this side of PA. Long-term treatment programs for women with children. We contract with 16 halfway houses, 10 male, 6 female. We have 5 local licensed outpatient treatment providers that provide outpatient, intensive outpatient. 3 are within or just around the city limits. We have 1 right over the Butler border in Wexford, and then we have 1 in Katanning for individuals that live close to the border there and can't get back and forth into Butler. All of the outpatient programs also offer and provide MAT services for people if they're interested in that while they're attending outpatient treatment. We have contracts with 2 local methadone providers. So we have a continuum of care for people. Hospital-based treatment services. We have a contract with Butler Hospital, and we're in the process of ironing out for a contract with another hospital-based program, and this will be hospital-based detox, hospital-based inpatient treatment, as well as a 3.7 level, which is considered non-hospital, but it's going to be more focused on the individuals that we're all seeing right now. And these are individuals that are really struggling with physical health issues that we're struggling to find placement for, because a lot of our facilities aren't they've not experienced this, and they're not up to speed as far as the medical care that these individuals need. So,
Something that has come up a lot too is with MAT. I don't think enough people understand the importance of that, and there's also a little bit of stigma behind that. It's why are you
substituting one drug for
thank
another?
you substituting one for the other? And Dr. Brophy said his brother wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for methadone. And when we are talking about people going into treatment, someone just going to AA, that might work for them. They might stop drinking, right? And avoiding situations where there's alcohol. Someone who is abusing substances, they might need something a little bit deeper than that. So does anyone want to talk about that and why, just understanding all of these different, when someone's coming off of fentanyl especially, but now we have xylazine, which to my understanding, xylazine, Narcan doesn't work if you are overdosing on xylazine, right?
Correct.
It will not be affected. If there's other substances, though, mixed in, you can administer.
Correct. So,
and then rescue breaths are also recommended for that. So understanding all of these things, I think when we're talking about MAT, but also Narcan, like the importance of that. I now carry Narcan. I have it in my bag. I have it here and I have it at my house. So I always have some with me because
you never know.
You just never know. And I would much rather administer that to someone and give them a chance than be in a situation where I'm like, I wish I could do something, but I can't. Right. What can I do? Like, would I try to administer CPR? Probably, because that's what else would I do? Right. Obviously. But who would like to talk about the importance of that and how, from your experience?
Medication-assisted treatment. Others, sometimes it's referred to as medication-assisted therapies. It's just one more tool. This is a medication. I'm going to say similar to taking medication for something else. This medication is going to block the cravings. It's going to do its job in the brain. You're not going to feel the cravings, the desire to use, but it does nothing on the therapeutic side of things. It's not going to help you figure out why you continue to use substances, why you started using substances. It's not going to help you mend fences with the family, kind of move forward with your life. So MAT is, it's an important tool, and it needs to be a tool that's made available to someone, giving them the choice whether or not to utilize it or not. But it's really important that people understand that never would I or most advocate for just MAT, just that medication, and you're going to be good to go. No, there should always be a treatment component along with that. They go hand in hand.
No, you just read my mind, because that's what I was just going to say, that, I lived in Boston, very close to the methadone clinic. I need to look into that and see, but a lot of times you will hear that there are situations where someone goes and they just get the medicine and then they are sent off on their way, but they're not really giving themselves a chance to, or whoever is prescribing that for them is not actually setting them up for success. Because like you said, and everyone here was nodding their heads, it's not just about that. That's a tool and an entire toolbox that they need to be using. So the therapy, dealing with what caused them to use in the first place, right? Because there is a lot of underlying reasons that someone starts using drugs, alcohol, to cope. Thank you for that, because I know that a lot of times it does come up where there's a lot of, I'm just going to say ignorance, because no one's willing to learn about these situations and understand that at some point there is a point of no return. They can't just put it down and just stop. They need help. They need support. And that might mean using something else along with therapy and rehab, whatever it might be. Okay. Thank you for that.
And that's an important point for the recovery community itself. Our recovery center, the discussions and the conversations have been about wanting and needing this center to be inclusive of everyone, regardless of whether you're using an MAT or not, because of that stigma that exists within the recovery community. So, and that's sad. You know, we're fighting stigma from so many different levels. Yeah, important.
Well, Rachel Schuster and I talked a lot about that because I know that she is one of your people that is a part of that. And marijuana has also come up. And I'm sort of following what the governor is doing and that talks about that. And I don't think enough people really research cannabis to a point of understanding that cannabis has helped a lot of people. And I know that there's a program out in California when I was out there that was helping veterans who were addicted to opioids. And a lot of them were in a position where they wanted to take their own lives. And this, gentleman I spoke to who gets them off of the opioids, cannabis was what was getting these men off of the opioids and was getting them up and out of their houses and functioning again and not wanting to take their own lives. So that's a whole nother conversation. Obviously, that's not something that is part of your program, but it's just something that we haven't really talked about. So I don't know if anybody has an opinion or if you want to just stay mute on that, that's fine as well.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'll speak to that a little bit. First of all, having two parents that passed away of cancer, I can tell you that I wish medical marijuana was available to them. I've seen other people use it, and it was very positive for them in that situation. So I got behind the medical stuff for multiple reasons. Now they keep adding to it. They've added so many different medical variations to it. But I am still concerned because from my level of what I see with Donna and all the programming and treatment and prevention treatment, this is almost going into the face of that. And I'm a little concerned about what that looks like. As a county commissioner, one of the things we looked at is when medical marijuana was brought to the table, we created a task force to look at that and see what all would be affected. And we gave recommendations and said, if you're going to do this, make sure this is in place. Make sure that the community is fully aware of where services are, where treatment is, and that the funding that comes out of that should go back into the community as well to fix these other social problems that are sure to follow. We already knew that. We planned it. I think that this is going to be the same if we continue down this road, and I think you'd be surprised. I think we're about 70% of the general population would like to see it legalized. So I think legislation is probably going to lean that way at some point. I don't know when. I couldn't guess, but I think it'll probably end up there. But again, our statement back to them from the County Commissioners Association was, if you're going to do this, make sure we're at the table to discuss, meaning the treatment programs have to be there, the schools have to be there, the higher institutions of learning have to be there, because this will affect literally everyone. Employers need to be there. How do I have somebody driving a fork truck that's using an illicit drug? By the way, we also said it should, the feds have to address it first, is really the critical part for us, because that changes a lot of laws on our end. So I think there's a lot to unwrap in that. I mean, we
Absolutely.
could do a whole show on that. But
Absolutely.
I think,
And sorry, I did just kind of throw that out there. I just
surprise.
I threw it at
I'm
you.
kind of like,
I know.
Mhm.
And so when I think about Pennsylvania legalizing, right? It's like, well, is Ohio legal? Because if you cross the border, then that's a federal offense, right? If you cross state lines with a vape with THC in it, that's a whole different story. So to me, I want to understand why can't we as a country start to get to a place where we are really just, if this is something that we are for medical reasons. And I am the same with when it comes to cancer. There have been a lot of cancer patients where it has helped them be able to eat and stay healthy. Because a lot of times when you're going through radiation and chemotherapy, you lose your appetite, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start to lose weight. And that ultimately are the things that start to take your body to where it ends up going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if them having that available to them to give them an appetite to keep their body healthy and strong and beat cancer.
Right. Yeah, the only hope that we had available was very large quantities of major drugs. I mean, literally it was patches and stuff all day just
Yep.
to keep them comfortable, and that's
Yep.
that's a very difficult thing to see. And then here we are with all these drugs on the street again. Now what do we do with them? And that's another issue. We need to look at how
Yeah.
we collect them back, and how do we make sure that they're disposed of properly, from the visiting nurses to the healthcare worker to the churches to the hospitals. Everybody's got to be letting people know. Like, I know Rich has been a big supporter of the drop box to get rid of drugs out of your house, which is great.
Yeah,
We have
that's wonderful.
We have Dextera bags that they can put drugs in, mix it up with warm water, and you can
Dextera.
legally dispose of Dextera, right?
Yeah.
We have those available to people. So we have ways to do it, but people don't know. I mean, if you ask somebody on the street what Dextera is, they'll be like, oh, it was drug, right? They don't know.
I was just going to ask you, what is it? Yeah.
Dawn
So,
can probably explain it the best.
D-Terra.
Dextera, sorry.
Yeah, they're bags. They contain charcoal. You put your medicine in there, your pills in there, add water, shake it up. It naturally dissolves, breaks down the pills, so you could throw everything away.
and they can get that from you. Okay. So anyone could come in and just
Yep.
say that they need a Daytera bag. Is it?
Yep.
Daytera?
Yep, they can have as many as they want.
Okay. Because that is the safest way. You
Right.
should never throw them in the trash, and you're
Never
not
flush
supposed to.
them.
You're not supposed to flush them.
No, please
Yeah.
don't
Right.
flush your
Please
medications.
don't flush your meds.
Yeah.
So you can go to Butler County Drug and Alcohol. You could walk in and ask for a Daytera bag,
Yep.
and that will take care of your meds. And that happens. That was we had that conversation with, when someone goes into like a nursing facility or a nursing home at the end of their end of life, and when someone passes away, you have all this medicine, right? And you don't want that going out into the trash, onto the streets with the names on it, but also because you know what's going to end up happening. Someone's going to
Right.
find that.
Please keep it locked. Well, even
Yep.
you don't know who's going to come into the house.
We also
know.
can provide, and when we're out doing outreach and we're at events and we have tables, we have the girls they're gonna let me hear about this because I can't remember the name, but they're actually little lock boxes. Like they look like a pill. You put your bottle of medicine in it and you can lock it. So if you have small children, if there's any reason for concern in your home, we have those available as well.
They're only as good as the gun locks, though. You got to use them.
Got to use them.
Got to use them.
Yes.
Yes.
We also have drop boxes
Right.
where and prescription bottles, like rip the labels off. You don't need that information, but they're safe places in pretty much all of the police departments.
I think there's about 13 of them now.
Okay.
Just
we-
go and dispose of your
Just-
prescription pills, whatever.
It's like a mailbox.
Yep.
Oh,
So-
okay.
And we have them in secure locations so that they can't be stolen. the whole mailbox.
One's in our court.
We have
in
one
I was
in
gonna
the
say,
lobby
what-
of the courthouse.
lobby.
Oh, there's one in the lobby of the courthouse.
The
Okay.
government center.
So you could go with like your pill bottles, and it's like a lockbox. Once you drop it in, it's
just drop it in and it's
in
get it out.
there,
Yeah.
and they take care of it. They dispose of
Gets
everything.
incinerated, I believe.
my county
Okay.
detectives will go around and empty all the boxes. Cranberry's always a nightmare. There's always so much down there. But,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. But and then they'll take it. The National Guard will come in and take it, and they will destroy it. So
Okay, that's good to know. I think one of the things that I'd like to ask all of you, we did talk about your whys, how you all kind of got into this, but what do you do? I mean, I see you at the gym.
what do I do?
What do you do to take care of yourselves?
Oh,
Because when these are the things
Not
that
enough.
the things that we're talking about, they're heavy things. I mean, you've even mentioned when you have someone who comes through a program or you see them and then they don't make it, right? You gotta take care of yourself. Like when you go home at night, is there like I read a story once about a gentleman who did work in, I think he worked as a, detective in crime, and he would go home and he had this tree, and every night before he walked in the house, he'd touch his tree and he'd just kind of take all that stuff, and he just it's like he was leaving it on the tree before he walked through the door. And maybe that's like in a perfect world, you could actually take something and put aside, but he just had to make a point that he's like, I got to leave this outside. I've got to be able to walk away from it and then face it again tomorrow.
This might be a cliche. I have walking shoes, and I think I pulled them out 2 years ago since I just don't have time to go walking during the day. It's always been an incentive, but I just haven't been able to do it. but I do, not quite the tree, but I have a wood shop. And a lot of times when I have a real heavy day, I'll go down to the wood shop, and even if I'm dressed in a suit, I'll go to the wood shop and just sort of plunk around. I might be putting sockets back together, but it's just something that's mind numbing. I don't have to really think about a whole lot. It gets me back down to normal. And then I feel like I can go in and spend time with my family. And that's important to me. We carry a lot of baggage around from whatever days that we lived or whatever we've seen or whatever we've heard. I know, talking to police officers and firefighters, we have a CERT team for critical incident stress management. I still serve on that team. And that's, people see some bad stuff in life. And you're right. How do you handle it? You got to take care of yourself first before you can take care of someone else. But it's way easier said than done, especially when you're in it, when you're working it. And, all too often we see our friends, our neighbors, ourselves turning to something else, whether you're drinking or you're doing whatever. It's not the best thing for anybody. And oftentimes that's the easiest, quick go-to, but it's not what's recommended by any chance. But, it's difficult sometimes for people to walk away from what they dealt with and go home.
I mean, and what we're talking about today, this is just a portion of what you deal with, right?
I don't even really like LETI's just sort of like a side thing, to try and help out. My days consumed with people that have been arrested and charged with crimes, and I've got a crate sitting behind my desk. It's been there since Monday that has about 45 DUIs in it for DUI court in the beginning of March that I got to go through, and that's every other week. So. I mean, like you said, I go to the gym in the morning. That to me, if I didn't do that, I probably would have a stroke or a heart attack. Just, by the end of the day, I'm already like frazzled and just ready to, you're not sure what to do. Mm-hmm. So I want to do something mindless. I really turn to Netflix, to be honest with you, and, just try and find a show that, several seasons or, 10 episodes, and that'll tie me up for a week. And,
what do you watch? The Office? Do you watch something like that?
I turn to Ghosts lately.
Ghosts.
I like that too.
Yeah.
They're going to think I'm crazy, but law shows or crime shows.
Of course.
I'm on a Law and Order kick right now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But
I just watched something about a Colombian drug dealer in Miami in the 70s. Karen Griselda, I think it was called, or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I thought, it's just something I'm sitting there. I'm like,
yep.
I don't have to think about anything. I'm just watching this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that was part of your campaign. I actually still had your card that they handed outside of the polling place.
Half of it was on the screen.
Oh, was it? Oh, it was. Yeah, it was all at the top. I was like, I just took it from the website. I was like, copy, paste. I'll let him decide what he wants in here. Yeah,
really? That's on my web. Oh, it is on my website.
It's on I didn't do that. That was from the website. I copied and pasted. You're like, wow, you wrote a novel. I was like, I didn't write that, actually. I don't get credit for that.
I was reading mine, and I'm like, I know I've seen this.
I read it too.
You're like, where did she come up with this?
I know.
You did. I didn't. But that was part of your campaign, was cleaning up our streets and getting, getting the dealers off the streets and getting the, convicting for DUIs. That was one of the big things, I just remember that. So,
well, and quite frankly, that was sort of my campaign in 2007. Mm-hmm. I still remember talking about creating a full-time drug task force, and then you get in office and realize, hey, wait, all this stuff costs money. So,
yeah,
but we really do have a full-time drug task force. It's just not dedicated, X number of officers doing it. So
it's building, right? You have to start somewhere.
Well, I think
it's there. So
we're in a great place right now. I think. Obviously nothing's perfect, as Kevin said, but I feel great about our police departments and my detectives. They do a fantastic job.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
good to hear. All right, Miss Donna.
What?
She's like, what now? What do you want to know now? Well, what do you do to
pretty much
the end of your day?
Pretty much what was already said. It's mindless stuff, exercise when I can, but it's mindless. It's just shutting the brain off. I'm going to be honest. Like I need quiet time. I need that Like I need time to decompress. But yeah, just mindless stuff. And it's the mindless, sometimes stupid stuff on TV, but that's what I need. I don't want to have to think. I've just used my brain for 10 hours. Like I don't want to have to think.
Right.
So
I can seriously relate to that. My wife works at home by herself all day.
Oh, so you go home and
she's in
she's
the mood
like,
to talk
hey,
when you come
how
home."
was your day? What happened?
We had to set some boundaries up.
Yeah.
It's about a 20-minute boundary. Either I go to the wood shop and I get my 20 minutes apiece, and it's nothing against her. She's ready to talk, and I'm in a different position because I talked all day, right? And so I worked through 27 different problems today. You know, we laugh when we're up at the commissioner's office. Oh, this is aisle number 47 we're cleaning up today. You know, there's always something, which I love. I like the fact that it's different every day, but it takes a lot of mind energy, and a lot of decisions are made on a daily basis. But when you go home, as you said, you're looking for that mindless activity. And when you get hit with, hey, I got you do this, and I'm like, I have no idea what you just said. Like, I literally don't know what you just said to me, and I feel bad. So if I get 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I'm good. Just give me 10 minutes. And we figured that out a while ago, but it is necessary, and people around us sort of know automatically. You know, it's different when you have small kids running around. They have no idea. You know, but obviously mine are grown up, so it's just my wife and I. So, but it's a challenge some days. I think we should mention about the EMS if you want to talk about that, where we're heading with that, because I think EMS has been in the news a lot, and those folks have been on the front lines of this stuff, and I say that sincerely. The EMS council's back together. We've made some effort in bringing on more staff through a cohort that the commissioners have helped fund. I know many municipalities are starting to step up and pick up some of these pieces, which is great. But we're about 125 short on EMTs right now. There will be a program coming up where people can go to class for free, get paid a stipend to be there. The class and testing will all be free, and a job will be waiting for them if they pass. So that's coming. That's what I'm really excited about. There's going to be marketing material through Butler Community College for that.
Okay.
So that's a great opportunity. But
do you have like a website or something you can?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet.
It's
Okay.
coming
Okay.
through BC3. They have a marketing team that's pulling that all together. But I think it's important to kind of tickle the people that are thinking about it. That's where they go, BC3. They can call them up. Let them know they're interested in that. And then, of course, we also have the EMS incentive program that we're looking to do with some of our opioid money, which means most people don't realize that when an ambulance shows up at your house and they pick up a person, maybe they fell, and they put them back in bed, they don't get paid for that. There's no payment. They only get paid when they put that person in the back of the ambulance and travel them. When they travel to the hospital, that's what they get paid for. So all these trips that they make, whether it be for that fall patient or whatever, they're not getting paid for that. And then if that patient that receives naloxone refuses treatment after, they don't get paid for that. So we set up a supplement, basically, is the way I would look at it, is if an EMS provider goes there and they provide additional information, and I think Dawn is putting together packets of information, literacy, stuff, leave behind stuff, for not just the patient, but for the family, because oftentimes it's the family member that helps encourage someone to go into service or treatment or whatever, but they need to know how to do that. And so that's what they would leave behind. They try to make that first call, that connection, that warm handoff. And for doing that, we can pay them a little bit of money to help supplement that cost of them going, because we all know that there's not enough money in EMS providers. There's just not. The medical insurance is not paying I'll be honest with you, they're not paying their fair share. So we at some point have to pay for this cost of readiness and some of the things. And that was one of the most unique things, I think, that the opioid trust money has been allocated for. But we got the recovery centers, we got the recovery empowerment. So people that are on MAT have a group that they can meet with that are like a support group for folks that are struggling, because look, we just said there's stigma with using drugs. There's also a stigma with using the MAT.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big problem. And then we have Hope is Dope, which is an educational program, and it talks about, you know, it could be for family members, it could be for the person themselves. And
yeah,
you know,
books right there.
We didn't even talk about the family impact of this stuff. Like there's so many things out there, from third grade to the family that's witnessing this. So spouses, moms and dads caring for children of incarcerated or unfortunately dead
Yeah.
Sons or daughters. There's a whole impact on our culture and our society, and there is support networks, and our county office has those lists of programming.
And that's all on the county website. I can include that in. I'm going to include that in the body of, obviously, with the YouTube, the video and stuff. But do you want to talk a little bit about those programs?
The resources that we hope to put together in these packets for EMS to hand out. Those resources are going to have information related to treatment, but also the programs that are geared towards the families, the loved ones, because we know that this disease just doesn't affect the person that's struggling. It affects everybody, that entire family, and we can't expect to just offer treatment, have that person go to treatment and start their journey in recovery without anything for the family, because that disease is going to continue. So it impacts everyone. Everyone needs to move forward and heal from this. So yeah, those the resources encompass that, as well as the mutual aid groups that are available out in the community, AANA, Refuge Recovery. But at any point, any time, a family member, a loved one, if they have questions, if they want to know what's out there because they've not found the information, they just need to pick up the phone and call our office. And we'll try to point them in the right direction or guide them or find the information and get it for them.
Well, thank you all. Any last words? Anything you want to say?
I'd just like to thank Rich and Donna and all their teams in the county, and even the courts and the folks that are really behind all of this, making it all work together. You just really can't thank everybody enough. We wouldn't be Butler without all the folks that are here.
Thank you.
Well, I'll thank him too. I'll thank her, and I'll thank you. And,
thank you.
Because a lot of the people in the county don't know about this kind of stuff. And so hopefully this will help to spread the word on it a little bit.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
That's a wrap. This episode is brought to you by Butler County District Attorney Richard A. Goldinger, R.W. McDonald & Sons Incorporated, Robert Stevens Jewelers. Thank you to our sponsors for your support on our first season of the Alter Ego podcast. Be sure to click the link in bio for your discount for BetterHelp Therapy online. 10% off your first month. Thank you for tuning in to Alter Ego. Join me every Monday for a new episode. And follow us on Instagram at Alter Ego Podcast. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, stay kind.